In September of 1866, a woman was found murdered, stabbed in the heart. A man that went by the name of Tom Dula was hung for the crime. He proclaimed his innocence to the very end. Today we are here to shine some light on this old legend and maybe even discover something new. The following is our experience.
Hi, camera.
Bite him! Hey, look where this man got his backpack, bro. Stop. This man got his backpack.
What? It's February.
Gil Gussie.
Get your hands off me, gentlemen. Oh, I'm a man, but I ain't gentle.
Bro, you got the chicken thighs, dude. Look, you look like that little meaty bone right here, and then you got the freaking meat right here.
I don't think you want to record this one. I don't think you want to record this poem.
Recite me the poem.
I don't think it'd be safe for me. Scissors are red. I want to pull the trigger. Bang bang, skeet skeet.
Tom and Anne were very close since a very young age. Since they were so very close, this worried Anne's mother, wanting her to marry someone more put together than Tom. So, she married James Milton. But even after the fact, Tom and Anne's relationship still continued. During this time, the Civil War was raging, and with it, James Milton proceeded to join the Confederate Army. During this time, Tom had been with Anne quite frequently at her home, but Tom shortly followed Jane's path into war, not long after, and was captured and sent to prison.
As far as the eye can see, we're carefree. We have no need to flee. I heard a skeleton.
We're gonna have to put the speed up a little bit. I really gotta urinate.
You're famous, man. You're like one of the most famous porn stars on the website.
That's what I hope to be one day.
The video ring.
Then them motherfuckers can't call me maidenless no more, motherfucker. Maidenless who? Tarnished when? I don't know. All I know is I got bitches. That is false. I don't have any bitch of any kind, and I don't refer to women that way. Please. Please.
Just a high five.
Like, I just a kiss on the forehead or something. I need some, please.
There must be something in the water. You could travel the world.
I really gotta pee.
Hey! Yeah! Born in the South!
0.8 miles. We go left on a Tom Dula road.
Tom Dude the road?
Left, right here.
Guess we're not going to the gas
Tom Dula road.
Shortly after the war, Tom was released from prison and returned home. Shortly after, he had met and fell in love with Anne's cousin Lori Foster, and they began seeing each other. At the same time, Pearline Foster had come to the area seeking treatment for a contagious disease. Pearline had stayed at Anne's house for the summer, and as Tom had begun to spend more time at Anne's house, people began to notice. So Anne asked Tom to have a relationship with Pearline, to deter neighbors. Tom now being in a relationship with both Anne, Lori, and Pearline Foster, but only Pearline and her doctor had known of her disease at the time. Not long after, Tom began to show symptoms of Pearline's condition, and soon passed it on to Lori and Anne Foster, infecting many other people around them, including James Milton. While this was happening, Tom and Lori had made plans to marry and leave town. This quite upset Anne.
Bro, cows don't got titties.
Where do you think the milk comes from? Oh!
Where the freak are we at?
I don't know, but let's explore.
I don't like this anymore. Where does this road come out at?
I have no idea. I don't know where we're at.
Find out.
Yeah, I guess we are about to find out. If I don't find a place to urinate very rapidly. Right here?
Go pee.
I'm getting out.
Make sure you shut the door down.
Hey. He gone.
You should have
Hey! I went from piss stance to running full force trying to catch the car.
Lori Foster had borrowed her father's horse on the morning of May 25th, 1866, and had rode to meet Tom. Upon her father finding his horse and his daughter missing, that morning a search was soon launched. Tom and a few other men were all considered suspects, and Tom, fearing for someone taking justice into their own hands, fled to Tennessee. There he worked under the name Tom Hall, just long enough to get a brand new pair of boots, then moved west again. Not long after, the police came looking for where he had been working, along with a large bounty on his head. Thus his old employer Grayson put together a posse to find him. They found him soaking his feet in Doe Creek. He was comforting the sore that he got from wearing his brand new boots. 2 of the 3 posse members elected to hang him on the spot, but Grayson convinced them that he was due a fair trial. He was returned to the old Wilkes County Jail in August of 1866. While in Tennessee, Pearline had been arrested in connection to the crime. When people had been over, they'd heard her making statements connecting her to the event. but she was then later released after it was determined she had not been involved. However, she did turn in evidence against her cousin Anne.
There's no grave. All I can find is road. So,
Everybody ready?
yeah, go for it. Oh my God! This is it.
That's it. That's exactly
it.
what it is. Because there's a wire fence.
And look how low his pockets are.
Is there it is, gentlemen. I left all my dabbling rods and all that in the car, so I got to run back real quick.
In the first days of September 1866, they found Lori Foster. Her grave was on a hill now called Lori Foster Ridge. She was buried in a shallow grave with a woman's handkerchief over her face. She had been stabbed in the heart with a small burlo knife, which was a common knife carried by nearly everyone at the time. She was found around 500 yards away from Tom's cabin. Tom and Ann were both brought to the Old Wilkes County Jail. With the attempts of an attorney that both Ann and her husband knew, the trial was moved to Statesville, North Carolina. The attorney had also arranged separate trials for both Ann and Tom. Tom was tried first. During the first testimony, there was many conflicting testimonies, and some were not recorded or recorded incorrectly. There was no hard evidence or witnesses of the crime. Despite this lack of evidence, Tom Dula was still convicted of murder and was sentenced to hang. The attorney filed an appeal with success, and finally 1 year later was tried again. On the same evidence, many of the previous attendants did not even show up. As a result, Tom was convicted again and sentenced to hang on April 30th. The night before his hanging, Tom wrote saying that he was the only person who had a hand in murdering Lori Foster. This was likely to protect the love of his life, Ann Foster. When Tom finally reached the gallows, he spoke to the crowd of nearly 3,000 people. Tom spoke for over an hour, maintained his innocence, and said, "Without these lies sworn against me, I would not be standing here at all." At the end of his speech, he raised his hand and said, "Gentlemen, do you see this hand? Does it tremble? I didn't hurt a hair on that girl's head." Tom was hung on May 1st, 1868.
Born Wilkes County, 1845. Died
He was 21.
Iredell County, 1868.
Iredell. He was 21. Or 23.
Bitches be trifling, homie. Rest in peace.
All right, gentlemen, record whatever you see fit. I need your keys real quick. I'll be back.
You drive off in that car, I have your mother's phone number. Look at the fucking idiot.
If you did indeed murder Lori Foster, cross these bad boys. Okay.
Who's here? You're supposed to ask who's here. How can... Who's here? Tom Dula!
Around 1874, Ann Foster had an accident on a cart causing mortal wounds. On her deathbed, her mother told her not to confess or mention Lori Foster or Tom Dula. Ann reportedly said, "I can feel the pits of hell at my feet." When the doctor came out of Ann's room, he was asked if Ann had said anything about Tom Dula. He then replied that he could not break his patient and doctor confidentiality. However, he said, "We had hanged an innocent man."
If Miss Lori Foster's the one we're talking to, cross these things. That's a prominent yes. All right, so let's cross this one more time to get this straight. Did Tom murder Lori Foster? Okay, so now we know the man, Mr. Tommy, murdered Lori, according to these metal rod thingy-majiggers.
All right, I got one more question for you, Tom. You go ahead and reset them things for me. Hey, Tom, let me ask you something. Is Chandler maidenless?
Hey, I saw that wrist. I saw that flick of that wrist. Now,
with the
whether this
trifling
man actually committed the murder or not, I don't know. According to the rods, he did. But at the end of the day, that's 2 pieces of metal.
And now we'll go over some potential suspects, the top 2 of course being Ann and Tom Dula. Some potential evidence against Ann could have been she was not very happy over Tom's plans to marry Lori. She had also been known to have a very hot temper. She had become very sick and suspected Lori of infecting her. There were also rumors that she had confessed to the murder. Although there wasn't much evidence against Tom, there was the fact that Lori was found near his cabin, and also when the search had begun, he had fled to Tennessee. Tom maintained his innocence until the very end, and Ann never officially admitted to the murder. You can find Tom Dula's grave on a peaceful hillside on Tom Dula Road, Lenore. And if Tom Dula actually committed the murder, well, that's up to you to decide.
There's gentlemen.
Remember, if they say, what you boys doing around here, start fucking running.